the different types of love that exist. We're so blinkered in our view of love, and love is, and we're also, we're also conditioned that it should be this or it should be that, and if it is this, then it should not be that, and and we have all these things put on us that you have to feel this way, you have to feel. Sometimes you don't feel those feelings.
I think let people see it and deduce whatever they want to, because I mean, who am I? Film is so subjective, and that's the beauty of cinema, right?
That in a marriage, and especially in a contemporary urban marriage of today, which is basically the theme of the entire series, which is that you make your own rules. The only two people matter. The only two people that matter are the two people in the marriage, and only their opinions should matter.
People are being so innovative, creative, and then as a result of that, as actors, we are having a really great run because we are getting offered roles which 5 years back, where would I get roles that I'm getting today? I'm literally sitting at home.
Thank you, ladies, for joining us. And I've seen Kaali Peeli Tales. Congratulations. A very fine, I think, beginning of storytelling. And Gauahar, I'll start with you. In a way, I think a difficult role for you to accept. Was it a difficult role for you to accept?
Oh, well, interesting. It was interesting. Yeah. I mean, firstly, it's a story about, overcoming obstacles for all three of us in the film. There are four characters in the film. So for me, it was difficult, it was interesting, and that's why I did it, because it's a challenging aspect. It's a story that a lot of people will feel even today that "Arey, ye to aise thodi chalta hai." But that's the point. The point is to break those myths and to try and open out minds to a lot of different types of love, and that is why that hashtag of love kuch aisa bhi works, because प्यार कई किस्म के होते हैं, relationships बहुत अलग-अलग होते हैं, and adjustments and acceptance is something that is inevitable in every relationship, and that's why I loved the story and I wanted to do it.
So the interesting part is, as far as your story is concerned, that so there is this support which is there, and I think it should be there in terms of for same-sex relationships, and that is there. There's a taboo associated with that. But your character, it's the betrayal that she experiences. That is something which is very real as well.
Yes, and that's the great part. That how does she kind of come to terms with the fact? And how does she want to take her life forward from there? Which I feel is very inspiring, because a lot of people give up on life. When, new factors are introduced into people's lives, into people's relationships, a lot of people give up and they want to kind of feel like, there's nothing more left to life. And the fact that Anu picks up from there and she changes her life around and accepts him for what he is and what she wants out of life is completely her choice, because she is a strong person. And I think that is very inspiring. I think people who watch that film will draw a lot from that.
All right, Soni ji, Hara Bhara, very interesting story. I really loved it. The way it flows, the way it ends, I think it's absolutely beautiful. I think the moral of the story is that quite a few times it is a supposedly dysfunctional relationships. Maybe they can be far more normal compared to what is supposedly considered normal by the society. So would you like to add something to that now?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a very that's a lovely way of putting it. It's just the unexpected in a situation of two people, and I love the maturity that story holds. I mean, that what I really loved about it was both these characters. They're so genuine, and there doesn't seem to be that rancor that you normally expect. So I felt that's what I loved about it. Was it's such a fresh take. Normally, divorces can be messy. I don't want to say too much because then we don't want to give away the story also. But what I loved about these two characters, the way they're dealing with a situation, which could actually be very tricky, very emotionally disturbing, very messy, very, very bitter, all that. Somehow they have managed to, have managed to rise above that. And I think that's what I felt most, I think very positive in a way, there's a very positive feeling you get, which is unusual subject.
The interesting part is that they're not compromising the couple, that Vinayji and your character, just for the sake of daughter. But they genuinely have a fine relationship in spite of the fact that they're not living together for quite a few years. That is something which comes across very beautifully.
Exactly. And I think that, again, the story, the different types of love that exist. We're so blinkered in our view of love, and love is, and we're also, we're also conditioned that it should be this or it should be that, and if it is this, then it should not be that, and and we have all these things put on us that you have to feel this way, you have to feel. Sometimes you don't feel those feelings. You genuinely don't feel them. You're not trying to not feel them. You don't feel, and I think human relationships are so complex. So this complexity is very interesting, and I find it very fascinating. And I think that there should be those kind of rules. I think now are we're realizing more and more they're pretty outdated. I think people have to form their own they have to make their own benchmarks, their own yardsticks in a relationship as to what is okay for them, what is not okay for them. Everybody has a different take on it, and I think that's the way it should be. And I think that freedom one should allow in a interpersonal relationships. So right. I think that's what this story really brings out.
Ma'am, do you feel that it is also the fact that many a times the way our stories are told, especially say in India, there are stereotypes which we tend to bracket our characters into. Like, for example, if characters are divorced, for example, so they will be, there are 2-3 ways that they can possibly be behaving. Either they are completely at loggerheads and they can't stand each other, or they're compromising or something of that. But what this film explores is maybe a new sort of idiom in a way, and maybe I'm sure that there must be many relationships like that which continue to have a healthy relationship even when they're not together. So maybe the stories are.
I actually don't think it's restricted to our country at all. I think it's a very universal thing that people when they separate, some separations can be very bitter and very traumatic, but they don't have to be. And so I think it's just the nature of the beast. I think how we deal with it also is very much up to us as individuals. And yeah, sometimes you do get hurt and you do feel, and not sometimes, I think every time probably you do get hurt and you do feel awful, and breakups are horrible, no doubt about it. But that people do move past these kind of situations, and I'm not only talking about breakups. So I think yeah, it's a question of being, maturity, perhaps. I don't know.
And by country, I meant, I think it's important to specify these days. By country, I meant that the way the stories are told in our country on screen. And
absolutely.
Specify करना ज़रूरी है.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so I said that.
Yeah. Is always hovering around the next corner. Yeah, definitely.
So I thought it was it's a fascinating story, and I think your character can be summed up by this conversation that you have when you're asked that, do you love him? And you said attraction, yes, but love, no. So the way she can compartmentalize her life, and obviously it's the honesty that's something that is fascinating, but the way she can compartmentalize, I think that's really fascinating. What is it that you liked in the script and in your character in general? Because it's once again a complicated relationships, but yet there is honesty and it's real.
Yeah, honestly, first of all, it's very nice to see you, Faridoon. And, it was so long ago, which is pre-pandemic. It feels like a lifetime ago, honestly, because there's so much that's gone down in all our lives and jointly, So I'm trying to really rack my brain to, get memories back from that era, I want to say, when we were shooting the film. But I think what I liked the script. There was nothing not to like in the script, but I also really liked Adeep and meeting him. And, he's just the sweetest boy. It's very difficult to deny somebody like that, and he just comes with great energy. And it's something that I always look in, when it comes to people, and especially people you collaborate with. What is lovely about the character, I think what you said, the honesty with which she functions. And I think as we grow older, we come across different individuals through the course of our lives, and we come across different experiences. And, you think you're a kind of a person that you think of yourself today, but, tomorrow you might find yourself doing something that you didn't think you would do, and I think when it comes to morality or fidelity, these kind of things, we tend to overthink, and we have these notions about the the boundaries that we think we will go to. And of course, we all have separate individual boundaries, but sometimes things happen, sometimes things are not in your control. But what's important is you own up, and you step up, and you figure out, and you don't hurt the people in your life, And I think in Signal Jhumka, what happens is she comes across, I mean, she's probably, isn't the whitest of human beings. Of course, she's gray. But what's really endearing is the fact that she comes and says, she in fact, doesn't wait for a later moment. She wants to have that kind of, I think not confrontation, but she just wants to come out clean, and when asked, she's like, no, I don't think it's love. I think it's just attraction, which is what happens. I mean, you have no control over somebody you might get attracted to. Of course, it's in your control whether you do something about it or not. And she has, definitely. But yeah, I think it's a lovely, sweet story of three people,
And what I personally felt as a viewer, and I think as a viewer, one can always deduce interpretations the way you want to. So it's not maybe unidimensional in a way, the story, and even the way she is. So the idea is, when she goes back to Priyanshu, for example, she's weighing her options in a way. And what the deal breaker for her maybe is when he tells her that it was a one-night stand, and she thinks it was lovely. So somewhere, maybe at a subliminal level or whatever, it is she's in a way weighing her option maybe, but it was a deal breaker when he says that it was a one-night stand. So is it fair to maybe have these interpretations as well? That gives
honestly, I'm also remembering because I haven't seen the film, right? I'm also remembering, oh yeah, right, he does tell her this. Yeah, I guess, I mean, of course she's weighing her options, but I think let people see it and deduce whatever they want to, because I mean, who am I? A film is so subjective, and that's the beauty of cinema, right? We could both watch the same thing and feel completely differently. And but I think what happens in the end, is quite sweet as well. And I don't want to talk about it because it's a little twist that happens, and that's sort of, I think that moment, in a way ties the film together, and for her as well. So, and I always believe that, you can be in love with more than one person, you can be in love with two people. So I don't think, I mean, if you ask me, I don't think there's anything wrong in it. Of course, everyone has, again, as I said, everyone has their own separate benchmarks when it comes to relationships and things that they would do.
Maanvi, hi.
Hi, Faridoon. How are
Hi.
you?
So your story is I think I know Sam's story is very interesting as well. So once again, it is on various levels, and she's the one who's doubtful about her spouse, that maybe she's maybe he's cheating on her, but in a way she's the one who's literally quite fascinated with her colleague. Talks to him. So there is more to it, which is quite interesting. That what you're saying, but what you're doing, there's a bit of a contrast, and I think that's how many times relationships are.
Yeah, I think that's how people are, right? Like when we see something, when we only see it through our perspective, right? There is no other perspective we know. We can try to see it through other people's perspective, but the grid and the matrix within which we work, where what we think, what we see, what we perceive is our own, and that's unique to every individual. So even in her case, if you see that like the reason why she asks her husband is because maybe she's herself feeling certain things for someone else, and that's why she brings it up with her husband. And but I think at the essence of it is the fact that in a marriage, and especially in a contemporary urban marriage of today, which is basically the theme of the entire series, which is that you make your own rules. The only two people matter. The only two people that matter are the two people in the marriage, and only their opinions should matter, and only their ideas should matter. And at the base of it, there has to be friendship and trust. And that can only come in through communication. And only when you have that friendship and this solid foundation of friendship with your partner, that you can discuss anything. And then you won't be shy, you won't be awkward, you won't be scared of judgment and all of that. And when you communicate, then you are leaving that much less room for any kind of a conflict, I feel. And I think that's what the film kind of harps on, in my opinion.
All right. So, Soni ma'am, it's so fascinating at the sort of times that we are in right now, with this entire OTT bandwagon which is taking place, and even YouTube, for example. So there is no time limit on the story that you want to tell. It can be like 20 minutes, for example. It can be 5 minutes. It can be 2.5 hours, or maybe it can be 10 hours. Maybe like a long series. So, do you find that fascinating with the sort of experience that you have? Do you find this phase of your acting career fascinating, the sort of stories that have been told?
Absolutely, because for the simple reason is that it is really the sky that is the limit today. And people are rising to the challenge. And what's wonderful to see, particularly in our country, is the sheer amount and volume of talent which is suddenly sort of tumbling out of all the closets, and people are just, it's like a tsunami. People are just making, you might like the content or not, but there is so much happening, so much is being made, and there are such unusual stories. People are being so innovative, creative, and then as a result of that, as actors, we are having a really great run, because we are getting offered roles which 5 years back, where would I get roles that I'm getting today? I was literally sitting at home doing nothing, because films are restrictive, or they were even, and there's only so many films that could be made in a year. But here, content is just so vast, and you need the more you keep on needing to churn it out, because there are that many channels, and new ones keep coming up. So as actors, I just think this is a great time, and I'm really looking forward to the future as an actor, or maybe even as a maker or whatever, because there are options today. There are options, and there are stories that you give that today. You don't have to restrict yourself to the kind of story you want to tell. You don't have to, you don't have to worry about the kind of characters you want to create and show, because there's room for everybody. I'm just so happy with what's going on, really.
No, absolutely.